This is Karma calling, and you better wake the up.
We're back with another episode of Karma is Calling. I'm your host, Lauren, and today is a very special guest. It is my love of my life, my husband, Charles. And it is a start of an epic series we're going to have going on Karma is Calling, because for years I have begged, I have pleaded, I have yelled to get him on this podcast, and he didn't want to do it. He just kept turning me down. Once I started it, he was like, oh, hell no, I'm not getting on there. But a month ago, he started going to therapy. He started doing the inner work. He's peeling himself back like an onion, finding all these layers, and he's realizing, maybe that would be kind of fun. Maybe I do have a story to share. And so I'm beyond excited for him to be here. He has gone through a lot in life. He has a lot of resiliency. He has a lot of grit, and I think he could inspire so many people. And what's really cool is he's never really dove into his birth chart before. He's never dove into his human design chart. And so what we're going to be doing over on YouTube is we're going to be live documenting his spiritual awakening journey. We're going to get him to understand his chart, his special energy, his life force energy, so that he can live life within alignment and we can see where that takes him and what he manifests. And so on our podcast together, we're really going to be talking about how to be in conscious relationships, what we've gone through, what we've learned together, and what we're learning in therapy together on how to just be the best partners, how to be the best versions of ourselves for one another, but also for ourselves, especially as we enter into this next stage of our life. Oh, I'm excited for you guys to meet him. Today, we're going to go over his anxiety, really what led him to therapy, how he's managing his anxiety today, and what he's been thinking about spirituality and how he finally got on board with it. And from here on out, we'll continue to dive in. And we really want you guys to comment any questions you might have that you want us to talk about, whether that's about relationships, whether it's around other random topics. We're here for you. I really want to make this a fun community. So let me know what you want to hear. Let me know if there's any questions we can answer. And let's meet Chachi. Well, hello, Chachi, and apparently Griffey. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, I'm excited that you're here. This is going to be a start of a journey between the both of us on this podcast. We are both going through some epic astrology things in the sky right now. I'm not going to get into the details, but basically, if you're an astrology nerd, Charles is going through his nodal return. This is his destiny of life. And I'm going through a Saturn return, which is my karma coming together. And I feel like this podcast is part of it. So I'm really excited to see where it goes.
I'm excited to figure out what my destiny is supposed to be.
Well, we'll be doing it live here throughout the podcast and our YouTube channel, Karma is Calling. We'll be breaking down your astrology chart, your human design chart to find what is your purpose here.
Once you find out, please let me know.
I'm excited. We will. So I think it's important just to give a short background around our relationship. I think the biggest thing is we're a COVID couple.
Started right before COVID.
Yep. Week before lockdown, we met up, and then basically fate brought us together and we haven't left each other's sides since.
I think the longest time we've been away from each other is probably about 10 days.
If that, yeah. And I think that that's what makes our relationship so strong is because we both work from home. We're doing hybrid. Now we fully work from home. So we're together all the time.
All the time.
And because of that, you got to talk. Like if you're going to live with someone, you're going to work by someone, you can't not have conversations. And I think that what makes our relationship so strong is the conversations we have, which is why I think we're kind of leaning into this podcast.
Yeah, I think that we've definitely spent a lot of time with each other, and that makes us break down a lot of barriers and a lot of just like things that probably we wouldn't have touched on so quickly into a relationship. And I think that COVID kind of forced us into that spot where we had to be vulnerable, and that opened up to a lot of conversations that helped us in our relationship.
Yeah. And so we met in Portland, moved up to Seattle for a few years, just recently moved back down to the Vancouver area right outside Portland. So we moved together. We got married in September and we're trying to start a family. And so that's a really brief overview of us. But today, what I really want to talk about is Charles's current journey in life. He's kind of going through that first layer of spiritual awakening, really diving into his self-healing, his anxiety. And it's been the coolest thing to consciously watch your partner wake up.
I think it's cool for you. I think it's a lot of struggles for me that I'm working through. I do see like the excitement coming from me growing as a person, and I think that that excites you and excites me. And so this journey is going to be a fun one, but also hard at times, I think.
Yeah. I mean, healing is never easy. And I think there's this like stereotype in the spiritual community that spiritual awakenings are rainbows and unicorns, but they're actually like where you're burning and you're killing parts off of yourself and
Yeah.
you're screaming and crying and
Sad
releasing.
days. Just sad days.
So, do you want to share a little bit about what you're currently experiencing mental health wise?
In order to figure out like what I'm going through with mental health, I think we have to go back to figuring out or talk about just me understanding that I have like mental health issues.
Mm,
I think that for a long time I kind of suppressed those feelings of emotional, just being within my thoughts. And I think recently I've gotten better with just taking the time to reflect and look inwards. And I think by doing that, I've come across a lot of things that I haven't dealt with. And one of those big things that I haven't dealt with is anxiety. And I'm working through that right now.
yeah. And as your wife being a therapist, I think this was a huge point of contention early on in our relationship where I'd be like, you should really go to therapy. You should really go to therapy. I know you have issues. Like you're moody. And then you'd be like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm fine. And I finally had to realize I can't push you to heal and I need to step back. I couldn't push you to be spiritual. I couldn't push you to heal. And when I did step back, one, that really helped our relationship. But two,
Lots.
you are now there on your own. And now I feel like you have the motivation to heal. And
Mhm.
something that we've been discussing recently is kind of how your anxiety was probably present for years and years and
Yeah,
years.
I think it's been there for like a long time. I just really suppressed it down and just put it in a box and hid that box in a closet and never wanted to touch that.
Avoidance at
Yeah,
its finest.
avoidance at its finest.
So, if you're listening and you don't really know what anxiety is, the common symptoms are where you can get almost obsessive with thoughts. So, you
Mhm.
ruminate, you just have the same narrative going on in your head over and over again. It's almost like a constant worry that you can't control.
Mhm.
So, Charles worries about work a lot and he can't control it and it just loops and loops and loops.
It's every day. And it could just be anything. It could just be anxiety has different levels. I think it goes to something where it's not as big as you can just like think about it and then work through it. And then there's also anxiety that's stronger, where like what I'm dealing with is just constant thinking about something and not being able to let it go, even though that you know that it's not that big of a deal.
You catastrophize things.
Yeah, you make it seem so it's like almost life and death without worrying about any physical harm.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to the point at times where you're just that's all you think about every single day.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
crazy.
And so anxiety is a spectrum. The lowest spectrum is just stress.
Mm.
Then to be actually diagnosed with anxiety, it does have to be to that level, like you're saying, where you can't control it. It's all encompassing. You have it in multiple areas of your life. And then to the largest, OCD. So it's kind of like stress to anxiety to OCD. And for you, what I noticed is when you would get triggered, it was almost like that's all you could focus on. And then your mood would start to tank and
Mhm.
everything would kind of just agitate. So, irritability and frustration is also a sign of anxiety because you're so consumed with other information that you don't have the bandwidth to really focus on other things.
And I think because of that, I also I like decided to just avoid everyone because I didn't
Mm.
want to deal with like I knew that my mood was changing. I felt like I wasn't myself. And I mean, for the most part, I'm a pretty go with the flow type of person. But I think with anxiety, that changed almost like my genetic makeup in a sense. Like I think that it made me kind of just wanted to not be close to anyone at that point. Like I think that in the past it was like a little aggressive. Like before now, I think the anxiety was like a little too much. Like
Yeah.
I think I was depressed at some point. And then I think over time I decided that I needed to make that change and then work
Mhm.
within. So like when you brought up therapy, I think that that's when I finally gave in and I was like, okay, I need to make a change from it turned from stress to like OCD in a sense to like severe anxiety where it like brought up and messed with like relationships and friendships and
Yeah.
work stuff. And then now like we've crossed that hump. We're going to a better side.
Yeah. And I think what really motivated you this time was your anxiety has been crippling for the last few years to the point where you actually left a job because of it.
Yeah.
And you saw your trajectory going the same direction. And the thing is, how I see it spiritually is we all have wounds. And Charles' anxiety specifically goes back from childhood and trauma, where a lot of people's anxiety and depression are rooted in trauma. That is what makes anxiety and depression symptoms. I want you guys to think anxiety is worrying about the future, depression is worrying about the past. And not all, sometimes it's a chemical imbalance, but a lot of people on this earth right now are struggling with unhealed trauma. And he got triggered in his past job, and you started seeing it kind of go down the same route of your anxiety taking over, it impacting your
about
work.
My recent job right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're like, I cannot do this again for my family. I cannot do this for myself. And that was kind of your rock bottom of I need help. And we ended up going to therapy together and getting support. And so you mentioned your anxiety is almost like life or death. And we talk a lot about that because when you are triggered, your brain is literally telling you life or death.
Yeah. Your brain's telling you that like you need to fight for something. Like something is going to hurt you or harm you in some sense. And so it's fight or flight.
Fight or flight. That's living in a state of fight or flight. So your anxiety is rooted in core beliefs and from your own childhood traumas. So how do you think being biracial, growing up in a single parent household, all of that has impacted you now?
Obviously, when you're younger, I don't think you are aware of those things happening. I think you, in a sense you do. You have a little understanding of like being a biracial kid from a single household. Like you see your friends, most of them, especially where we're from, like they come from a single parent. So I don't think that was like too crazy of like a thing to see, especially when I was growing up in like where we're from. That was fairly common. But then as I grew up, I started to realize like, hey, maybe this isn't normal to have a single parent. Like I have some friends who are like, they have their moms and dads in good jobs and they have this house and they are living what I think is lavish. And I just never really experienced that growing up. Like my mom worked as hard as she could to get me and my brother to that spot. But that also came with like a lot of like pains as well. Like she just wasn't really in our lives. And I think that contributed to like the feeling of like anxiety because you need a parent with you to grow up. And my mom was working really hard to get me and my brother in a good spot. And so, I mean, that plus being Black and Mexican definitely was tough, predominantly in a white town. So I think all those together was just like a mixture of just like not the best concoction for how to be raised, but I mean, you just do what you can, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you just spoke to is having your mom working so hard for you guys made you have to step up into the adult really early on.
Yeah. I think when my parents divorced when I was 6, and that's when my brother was born. So especially in a Mexican culture, like once you're the man of the house, and I took that role obviously super early. I think that was just like built and drove into me. I think that's in my DNA to be the man of the house. And so I took that role on super early. And so I never really got the chance to become or be a child. I think I always felt like I was the protector of my family. And I think that comes with a lot of stress and a lot of just anxiety on itself. Like you have to be the one, you have to be the best brother, you have to be the best son, you have to look at things differently, you have to
be mature,
you can't get into trouble, right? You have to try to do well in everything that you do because you don't want to let your parents down, or your mom down, your brother down. So yeah, that was a lot of stress, and I don't think I like really paid attention to it until I realized that I got severe anxiety.
Well, and I think that speaks to you now because you get so fearful of losing a job, even though that's not even in the cards. But you say to me, like, I have a family, I have to provide for you, I'm like, babe, you're good though. And you have this childhood self at 6 years old feeling like you need to provide, not understanding the reality now that like you are okay and you are safe because that inner child is still functioning at that age of I'm taking this all on. And obviously that was your soul's journey. And you needed it and your family needed it that way. But it's really created who you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Everything that you go through growing up has formed you or sculpted you as the adult that you are today. So I think I needed that in my life at a young age to be the person that I am today. And that person today is like a loving, caring,
Protector.
hardworking protector. But there's things that I need to obviously tone down a bit from that. Like you can't carry that persona that you have as a child in as an adult.
Mhm.
So like being that protector, like I'm a protector of you, but as a kid I was a protector of like all my cousins, like
Right.
especially my mom. But now I'm just like, okay, my mom's good, my cousins are good, like you're good. So like I can take that tone down a little bit. I don't have to be as aggressive as the protector.
The weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, that weight of off my shoulders, and just now I can just try to be the best husband, brother, son that I can be, and I think that's helping a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like such a micro aspect of your anxiety of growing up really early, having that weight on your shoulders, and then as an adult replaying that out and healing that. And then on like a macro level, you were biracial, you are
Mhm.
Black, and we live in a society of oppression.
Crazy society right now.
And so from the time you were born, I mean, you were in LA during the
Rodney King riots.
So you witnessed that
Mhm.
as a baby.
Mhm.
You witnessed a lot of harm to people that look like you.
Mhm.
And you constantly see that on the news. And so that is then also triggering your brain into fight or flight. I have to be hyper vigilant at all times. And then what your mom has told you, of course, to protect you, but also it has ingrained in you that you have to be this perfect person at all times. And that has gotten in the way at times of you speaking up at work or whatnot, because there is a fear there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to all people of color, obviously, but all I can speak to is me and the life that I've lived and what I've witnessed. And yeah, like I think growing up in Los Angeles for a short amount of time and being there while the Rodney King riots were happening, my mom being a pretty light-skinned Mexican was terrifying, because you drive down the streets and you hear all these stories about people getting pulled out of their cars who weren't Black and like getting beat up, or you see Black men and women getting beat by police officers just on a daily, or
Yeah.
like I think that's just like a lot of stress that you kind of take that identity on, in a sense. Like you have to always be aware of your surroundings. And then I think with my mom being who she is, being just like a strong-willed person, she's always drilled into me and my brothers, like, no matter what skin color you are, like you're as good as anyone else. Like you have to know that, you have to believe that don't let anyone tear you down. Like you are as good or even better than anyone else. And I think with that, you have to also carry that on your shoulders too. Like you always have to have that feeling of like, I'm equally as good of a person in any sense than you are. And I think that just because of that, and I think that with the environment that we live in now in the last couple of years, I mean, it's not as bad, but it's been really like aggressive too. So
Yeah. And you work in corporate America. You've worked in corporate
Yeah.
America your whole life. You were always the only Black person on your team. And I think recently we've had a lot of conversations about that specifically, and also about how these core beliefs have been formed, whether you realized it consciously or not. Like what you see is what your brain starts to absorb. The subconscious will see images and absorb those images. And so even though your mom was telling you these beliefs of you need to be better than everyone else, right? So you have that hypervigilance, but then you also are seeing things on movies and the racial movies we've seen,
or even
the news, everything that is steeped in racism, that you are less than, or that you aren't good enough, or you won't get that job, whatever it is, right? And so you've had these really big core beliefs ingrained in you, and currently you're waking up that these have been functioning at such a subconscious level that have been steeping into all areas of your life. And I feel like that's kind of been the epitome of your spiritual awakening.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can see that. Like I think that now that I am an adult and I've like realized all the things that I can change internally, and I can't change like outwardly. So all those thoughts that I had growing up, and then witnessing all these crazy things and living this life in this like world that we live in, like I can't go out and like change everyone's mindset on who a person is and how they get treated, but all I can change is me. And what I can change inside is like how I can better myself to be a better person. And then maybe with that could change the world, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe not even the world, but just like as if you can change just a little bit in a person who maybe had like a belief about something, then that's just a huge change. That's a huge win. And so,
Yeah. Because it will ripple.
yeah, it's a ripple effect. It's like a butterfly effect.
Yeah. And I think it's been cool because I think in the beginning, when I started manifesting, I would tell you, like, you just got to think it to believe it. You just
I've
got
never
to,
believed that.
and
Like, growing up, I never believed that.
you never believe that. Well, we would talk about it like years ago. You'd be like, Lauren, you have so much privilege to be able to just think it and to believe it. And we would get in a lot of good
Tiffs.
talks about that.
And tiffs.
Because I'd be like, no, you just need to go heal your subconscious, because I think both are true.
Yep.
In the human experience, if the new age spirituality does not always take into account oppression and trauma, especially intergenerational trauma that you have in your bones, your ancestors, what they've gone through, and the trauma you now hold through epigenetics, which is basically in our DNA, we hold trauma for up to 3 generations. Now, that is true. There's also a side that you just spoke to, is you can still heal that.
Mm-hmm.
And as you heal your trauma, you will naturally vibrate at a higher level and attract manifestations in. So it's accounting for the human experience, validating it and knowing it's real, but also looking at the spiritual experience of we can change our realities when we do our inner work. Whether you change externally, you can change internally.
Yeah, I think at first it was difficult for me to believe that, because it was so hard for me to actually see myself doing the things that I am doing, to then have a person who's not a person of color be like, all you have to do is just manifest. Like, if you believe, you can change the way that you live. And I'm like, and I was thinking, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I've tried doing this. Like, I've tried thinking about, oh, one day I'm gonna make tons of money. Like, I felt like I was manifesting. And then I think I had a little bit of pushback towards it, because it was like, Lauren, like, you've gone to like these really good schools, like you had both parents. Like, I was always coming up with all these situations where you always had a leg up. And I think that over time I had to understand that, like, it's not necessarily that you had a leg up. It's just like you knew exactly what you wanted to do, and then you worked hard into doing it. Where I felt, and I played the victim a lot of the times, and I think most people of color play the victim here. And I think that, not to say that it's a bad thing, because we have been victims for a long
100%. In the human experience, you're victimized all the time.
Yeah. And so I think that we can take that role on and then hold on to it, but we need to change our mindsets on it and then not be the victim anymore. You have to work hard internally. You have to see that you can change your stars. And as soon as you decide that, you just have to now work on it. And then eventually you will get to where you want to get to.
Yeah. And 2 things. One, I want to name, I do have privilege. Obviously, like you're saying, I did have a leg up in the sense of my identities that allowed me probably more opportunities right off the bat. That is true. And the second thing is, we've talked a lot about the victimization mindset of people of color and how they want you guys to feel victimized.
Oh, for sure.
They want that belief set in and ingrained in you. And that's why there's systemic racism in every single system, school system,
Professional settings.
professionals, work, whatever it is, there's a disproportionate racism in Black communities, how there's a higher rate of alcohol and liquor stores on every single corner to keep people
just crappy roads
and
like
numbing
crappy,
and
yeah. I think there's still systemic racism. I don't think that has changed at all.
No.
But I think a lot of people are more aware of it. I think we're opening up to the fact, and we're seeing it a lot more. And I think our voices are being heard a little bit more. Like, I think we're just getting tired of feeling that feeling of like, we understand that they're still trying to keep us down, and we just have to overcome that.
And I think that that's speaking to the larger kind of movement in the spiritual community right now in across the globe, is we are going through the Great Awakening. You see it at a rapid rate. The amount of people that are waking up is creating more light in our bodies, because more and more people are healing. We're going therapy's becoming normalized,
Mhm.
energy work's becoming normalized, alternative forms of medicine's becoming normalized, right? A lot more people are waking up. And with that, they're waking up to the injustices. That's why we saw 2020, the walkouts and all the protests and whatnot. But that's also why at the exact same time, we are seeing the darkness of humanity come at twofold. Because as more people wake up, the darkness, wherever there's light, there has to be darkness. And so the darkness is really growing as well. And hopefully, eventually, it's going to be eclipsed where enough people have woken up of all races and all genders to understand that we are the exact same at our core.
Yeah.
The physicalness of human reality, I feel like, is almost your avatar that you chose made you have trauma just right off the bat. When you were born, it was like,
I don't know what I did in my past lives to have to go through some of the crazy things that I've gone through, but I mean, here we are. So I just have to make the best out of it, I guess.
well, and as you find your spirituality, you kind of are, you're realizing like, okay, these are my superpowers. I've gone through this shit. I know what pain is like. I know what it's like to be in a dark night. Now I can come out of it, know my soul, and kind of provide back. And I feel like that is the purpose of human experience. You heal and then you heal others.
Yeah. Well, I hope I heal. And if I do come back, then I come back as a rich black guy.
Well, remember you had that past life reading and you were rich in a past life, and your south node is in the second house.
Well, I had it in my past life. I had it in my future, but definitely not my present. That's what I'm working on.
Hey, this podcast.
Yeah. Seriously.
So I guess I'm wondering from you, when I started getting into spirituality, that will probably be a whole nother episode we'll talk about, and how it really impacted our relationship.
Mhm.
I dove headfirst in. I'm someone who's all in. When was the moment that you started saying, okay, maybe there is a little something to what she's doing?
I think it was when you decided to start astrology, like
Okay.
you being an astrologer. I think that is when I started to realize that like maybe you like the teachings that you're or the learnings that you're learning and the way that you were just putting a lot of effort into something, and to this point now you've grown it into a business, and you've always known that like this is something that you wanted to do. The same thing with like therapy. Like you wanted to be a therapist at a super young age, and you knew this, and then you like started doing charts and you started reading your own like what your stars look like, and you're like, oh yeah, I knew that I was supposed to do this. I think I was skeptical at first, but I think that each time you kept on leveling up, and I was like, okay, maybe she's right about this. Maybe she does know that like in the past this is what you were supposed to be.
Which is funny because you said to me, I need to have evidence. That was
Yeah.
your biggest thing about spirituality, is like, I'm a logical person. I need evidence. And I guess just literally watching me and me telling you, even though you had no idea what I was talking about,
I still don't know what you're talking about half the time.
but you will. Me telling you like, babe, this happened in my chart and then this happened, or this happened and then this happened. You really did get that evidence.
Yeah.
And even the hard times.
I think it's obviously it's harder to see evidence when you're going through some hard things, and it's so much easier to see evidence when things are going well, because you have
Mm.
something to tie it back to. Where like when you're in a dark spot and you're seeing these pings like come at you, you're like, what was that? Like, is that something I should focus on, or is this just life giving me another challenge? And once you start realizing that like those challenges are life lessons, and once you overcome those life lessons, good things happen from those things, then you start expecting and wanting more of those life lessons because you get to grow from those things.
Basically going from the victim mindset of, fuck, I have another thing I have to do, the world hates me, to, oh, this is a challenge, I'm going to grow through it. And then you become like more confident in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned a little bit that we went to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to say, if you're going to therapy and you don't feel like your therapist is the right therapist, it's okay to switch.
I mean, yeah, we've gone through a few therapists because we want to find the right one. Obviously, especially me. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of therapists. Like going to therapists, like I think for the longest time I was avoidant of therapy.
Yeah.
And then the therapists that we've had in the past probably weren't what we were looking for. So yes, make sure that you find the right therapist that you will help you with whatever you need help with.
And I think we're shifting in a new paradigm. You know, I was just talking to my friend about this. Like, having someone validate your feelings
Mhm.
and that is it is not helping you grow. Because what if those feelings are coming from a distorted perspective?
Mhm.
Or like something that you and I do great is like we talk about shit all the time, right?
I mean, we go for walks and we talk.
Yeah, like our triggers, what we're learning about ourselves. So when we go to therapy, we are looking for someone to deepen and make us think harder about it and reflect instead of just validate.
Yeah,
I just can't.
we want people, or we want therapists to give us tools to work on some of the things that we need work on,
Some hard
rather
questions.
than, yeah, or some questions to like ask each other. Like an example of the things that we wanted to go see a therapist about was like communication. We wanted to learn how to communicate with each other in a way that like you can get your point across, I can get my point across, and we're listening to each other rather than just talking to each other. You can talk to each other and you feel like you built that connection, but if you don't go deeper within that conversation, you're not going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And or you're not going to listen to the other person and figure out what their needs are, because you're just listening. And so we were hoping to have a therapist that can give us some pointers or some tools to become better listeners, become better talkers or communicators with each other.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that in our first couple of ones.
So yeah, I mean, shameless plug, but like I'm a direct therapist. I'm almost like a coach mix therapist, and I'm doing container sessions because I think 3 months is great. You come see me for 3 months, we recheck in. Do you want another 3 months? I think that going every week for years on end can be good if you're getting deeper, but at times it can also keep you stuck. So just like to say that. But one thing that did come out of the therapy that we did just go to for the last few weeks is human design.
Human design.
And it's just so crazy how it came about us. I said this on another episode, but basically she practiced human design and was able to provide us some really cool information about how our energy works. Like I was talking in my last episode about our designs. And Charles learning his design actually has really helped understand his anxiety better because his two top chakras, the ajna and the crown, are undefined. And again, go back to my last episode to understand what that is, but it means that he gets programmed in these areas. And if you have two top centers undefined, you get racing thoughts that just loop and loop and loop and loop and loop. And I feel like when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, it makes sense where I'm the opposite. I have them defined. I don't get stuck so much. I find I talk obsessively, but I feel like I don't get stuck in worries like you.
See, that's crazy because like you can talk excessively and then not have crazy thoughts running in your head. And I
talk it out.
And I talk a little, and I just have a lot in my head.
And that's what it is. I think I talk all my energy out and I process it. And then I get to the solution really quick. I'm like, because my top three are defined. Your top three are undefined. So you struggle to even talk about it. But now what you're realizing is when you do talk about it, you are able to move that energy quicker.
We're still figuring out if that's the case.
Well, you said when we go on walks, you feel better because you are processing that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you are my mini therapist. And so I get a lot of therapy during the weeks. So yeah, I do see that it is easier for me to get my thoughts out because we do go for like an hour walk a day. Like we get to almost 2 hours worth of walking. And so I get 2 hours of therapy sessions.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it is, I have seen a difference between where I was when I just kept all my emotions inside compared to where I'm at now, where I'm freely discussing those to you. I'm just in a better mindset. I feel lighter, and then I can work through these things that I've like suppressed for a long time. So
yeah,
go see a therapist.
And it's funny you just said your emotions because your astrology chart, which again we'll be breaking down on our YouTube channel, you have a very auspicious placement where you have a grand trine, which means you have a triangle of water and you have 7 planets. So you're super watery. And so the element of water is emotional. It's moody. It's in flow. It's creative. It's chill sometimes because water can
chill a lot of the times.
But water can get rough, right?
Yeah.
But you had this amazing energy, all these emotions inside of you, but because of another area of your chart, your home life, actually, your emotional center, your emotional house 4, Saturn was there with all these other planets that restricted you. And you became this father figure, Sagittarius, this wise man at a very young age, which prevented you from expressing these emotions. So as you have been going through your ancestral and individual trauma, you are unlocking your whole entire astrology chart to all this amazing emotions, which is making you fucking intuitive as shit.
I knew you were going to say that.
I know, because you guys, like, this is such a small example, but this happens every day. We're watching a game show, The Floor.
Or a movie or
a movie, but
or
this just
anything.
happened.
Yeah.
And they put an image on the screen. They're like, it's going to be a hammer. Boom, it's a hammer. We're watching a movie. That guy's going to die. No, he's not. Literally 20 minutes later, he dies. He kind of ruins all the movies for me, but it's crazy.
I don't know if it's okay. I can see if you thinking that it was intuitive, like me being intuitive, or I can see because I'm still like half glass, half empty, half or the glass half full kind of like thing with this. Maybe the screenwriter is just really bad and they just give hints, and I'm just like,
do you remember what your spirit guide said to Kiki?
No, I mean, I don't.
To stop dismissing your gifts.
I was just saying.
Because how would you know? Sorry, friends. When my friend calls me, describes their relationship, and then Charles like, they're going to break up. And I get so mad. I'm like, dude, stop like wishing bad on my friends. They're not going to break up. 2 years later, they fucking broke up.
Whoever that I said that to, I'm sorry.
Another friend had a situationship. Charles from the very beginning was like, he's a player. And I'm like, you don't know that. Years later, he was the biggest motherfucking player of our lives. So I think it's more than a screenwriter. I think you intuitively pick up on people's emotions.
I mean, being the biggest player, I was crazy back in the day. But I think that it was just like a lot of learning and experience. I think I can see a lot of stuff that I've done in the past, whatever, to some people who've done things recently. And I can just like almost pinpoint and be like, oh, that person's just playing that person, or they just want attention, or so I can see that. So I don't know if
that's intuition.
I mean, I guess
it's being able to intuitively tap into other people's emotions and how they're playing, which is your Cancer moon. I also have a Cancer moon. That's why I'm a therapist. I can intuitively tap into my clients' emotions. However, both of us.
Maybe I should just be a relationship coach.
Ooh.
Like Hitch. Like the movie Hitch.
That would be really fun. Maybe we do couple.
Yeah, I have a 1-800 number after this, so give me a call.
Honestly, drop any comments about couple questions that you have, because I think it'd be fun to answer.
And if I'm wrong, then just know that I'm not a professional.
But I am, so that's okay. It's interesting though, because you have a lot of water. I'm a Cancer moon, but we're both non-emotional beings in human design. And so basically what that means is Charles and I have our ability to tap into other people's emotions, but we're not.
We just avoid our own.
Yeah, basically we don't ride this wave of highs and lows. We're just kind of able to avoid our emotions. I
don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing,
no. But I think we're learning together. I think I never felt emotions until I started dating you.
And I don't think that I wanted to express my emotions until I started dating you.
Because I think we feel safe. I projected on you for a long time that you were so non-emotional. And then I realized, oh shit, it's me, that I'm just totally avoiding intimacy. And same with you. But it was also me.
Yeah.
And so we've really had to do the healing work of like projecting on one another. And because of that, it's gotten us to unlock our emotions. Because if we didn't unlock our emotions, our relationship would be so fucking surface level.
I mean, I honestly don't think that we would be in a relationship.
Oh, tell me more.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that I think our relationship, we need our emotional connection in order to keep us strong. Like, I think that you and I have worked really hard with our being able to show emotions and me talk about my emotions. I think that has unlocked a lot of things in our relationship that has opened up a lot more like great things about us. Like, we're super honest with each other. We can have honest conversations with each other. You know everything about me. I know everything about you. We enjoy spending every day with each other. And I think that it wouldn't have been that way unless we were open to having our emotions shared with each other.
Yeah. It's almost like what you're describing. It made our relationship that much richer.
Yeah, it just made it stronger.
And deep and rich. And emotions are energy in motion. So they're the way that we as humans get to actually interact with the world, the physical world. So really what an emotion is a sensory experience of something that is happening externally. And when people have a blocked sacral chakra, they don't always show their emotions, or if it's excess, they're over emotional, right? And so when you start tapping into your emotions, you start experiencing the world brighter in a way because it's sensories opening up. And it's not always easy. Like we will have some really hard conversations, or you'll be going through a lot emotionally, and it's sometimes hard to hold that for you, or vice versa. But when we do get through that, we feel so much closer because we saw each other at such like a raw, vulnerable spot that makes us see each other. I don't even know where I'm kind of going.
Almost like as humans. Like you're not just as a relationship, but you can see the other person as who they are authentically. Like when you share to me like how you feel about certain things and you're really like emotional about it and you're like raw, then I can see you for who you are. And it's the same for me. Like if I'm opening up to you about the feelings I have about anything, friendships, work, whatever, and you can see that that's like it's painful for me. It's like hard for me to tell you these things. You can see me for who I am. And I think that you and I have that ability to see that person for who they are and accept that person and then try to help them get through whatever they're wanting to get through. And that's what's made us stronger.
Oh, yeah. We see the souls instead of the egos.
Yep.
Because I think the ego, the parts of us that come forward that are wanting to protect us, are really what keep us from being fully intimate. So if you're in a relationship, your ego is probably running a lot of the show to protect you because it's scary. But when you let those parts of you down and you let your partner see you or your friends see you, it's just like you're saying, when two souls see each other, it's very spiritual. I mean, it's a spiritual experience.
Yep.
So I guess I want to wrap up the episode kind of talking about solutions that you have found for your anxiety recently, because you're still dabbling and we're going to keep it updated. Yeah. But I want to know, what have you found the most helpful so far with your anxiety? I mean, we already kind of talked about it, but I still think.
Yeah, I think walks have been a major key for me. Also, I think that communication is huge. I also believe that looking internally and just spending time with myself, either meditating or journaling, has been a big thing for me as well. You know, you just got to be you got to make sure that you're well-rounded in all the facets of like life. And I'm slowly getting into that. And I think it's been a big part of the change that I'm feeling.
Yeah. Why do you think walks have been so powerful?
Well, not only you're getting like physical, you're getting active, and that helps with like the brain, just being able to just get outside the house and outside your mind, communicate, like having that conversation with you, and then having ideas that you're sharing to me and then implementing it. And then you're also giving me tarot readings, which you can then tell me how I'm supposed to feel about the day or what my day looks like. And then it's up to me to figure out how I want to navigate that. I think that's been good.
Yeah. So kind of, I want to step back to the walks really quick, because there's a few scientific things that we could touch on. Like one, when you're out in nature for over 20 minutes, you naturally attune to the frequency of nature, which I believe is alpha, and it's a meditative state. So when we're walking, we automatically get into a relaxation mode. And then you layer it that we're talking about like really deep shit next to each other.
Because you're already relaxed because you're moving and you're outside. So you're already relaxed.
Already relaxed.
And then you can have those conversations.
So we're grounded. You have the conversations, and then we're not looking at each other. So our ego's not like alert.
Feeling awkward.
And so, you know, if you have conversations in the car when you're walking, it's like people get less defensive, right? So
and we have a dog who just walks and sniffs all over the place. So like it takes you away from like that serious to get to that serious. Like you're never too serious because Griffey will pull you one direction. Like, oh, okay.
God, I hate that. We really need to at least train them. Anyways. And then lastly, I find walks so fun because we visualize. We talk about
manifest.
Yeah, we manifest. We talk about our lives. We visualize. We feel what it's going to feel like. And it's so fun just to daydream with you and have these really deep talks, but then also just be like, where the fuck are we going? What are we manifesting? How are we going to make this our reality? And so if you don't go for a walk, do it, because it's gets us back to our roots. Like we need to be in nature. It could change your life. And it's so simple.
And I think what the walks are helping me do, especially, I mean, not only all the things I just mentioned, but we're going back to like me not being able to picture things in my future, right? And now with these walks, I am learning how to manifest. And now I can see my future and see the things that I want. Like we want a house. Hopefully we can get one this year, right?
So-
And like I never like I always knew that I was getting a house. But like now we can get a house that we want. Like
Mhm.
hopefully we can find a house that we want in a neighborhood that we want. Like I think that now I'm starting to realize that all those things that I've ever wanted in life are obtainable, and the walks and manifesting has helped me realize that.
Yeah.
That's been really cool.
And shedding the distorted beliefs of that you can't.
Yeah.
So, okay, tarot readings. I want to hear a little bit about what you think. I take Charles to a few psychics or tarot readers,
Mhm.
but really only one who's badass. And what did you think about that? Going to a psychic?
I mean, I was skeptical at first.
My little skeptical baby.
Yeah. I think it's okay to be skeptical because
Of
you're still trying to realize, you're trying to teach your mind that like what people see in your chart or your stars is essentially the story that has already been written out for you. So I mean, initially that's hard to like comprehend.
Yeah.
And so for me, being someone who's like logically like a logical thinker, like I need to see examples or confirmation of these things. Like I can't just be like, oh, what she says is 100% accurate, let me just believe what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm slowly getting into those because I'm starting to see from what people are saying are from my chart and my stars, like they are coming true. So then it's easier for me to be like, okay, I'm taking what this person is saying to me and I'm like understanding it. Kiki, when they told me or gave me my reading, I think that I was more open to it than I maybe went in leading, like to you guys. But yeah, it's been good.
What was the biggest thing that Kiki said? So they are an intuitive tarot reader. So
Mhm.
they speak to our guides, and apparently our guides really like each other. And I
Yeah,
love
apparently
that.
my guides kind of hate me.
Your guides give you tough love, but your guides sound a lot like me. And so it's kind of funny. But Kiki said that sometimes people's relationships, their guides don't like each other and it can be a problem, which is actually hilarious. But
Yeah,
that
not
was
ours.
no, they're working together out
Yeah,
there.
they're partying.
But Kiki talked to our guides. They are clairsentient and clairvoyant, which means they hear and see things, as well as use the tarot as a guide for the readings.
Mhm.
What do you think the biggest thing they said that stood out to you now?
Well, I think that I went in looking because I mean, I think this was at the point of my anxiety towards work,
Peak.
the peak. Like that was, I think that's the reason why we decided to go to a psychic because I wanted some clarifications on work, and I think Kiki gave me a lot of just information to think about, and so apparently my spirit guides are telling me that not to worry, that everything that I am hoping for, and to, I guess, just not to worry about where I'm at within work. Like
Yeah.
everything will work itself out, everything will be fine. And I think that was a lot of weight off my shoulders. I was able to take a few deep breaths and like relax, and I think that that has helped me with my anxiety.
Yeah. So almost just validation. And I was talking to Charles about this. I'm like, astrology readings or tarot readings, when things are going really well, it's fun to go and get validation of why they're going really well. Or if things are going really shitty, it's a good way to get validation or insight of why it might be happening. And so for you, it was like really just a lot of validation.
Yeah.
One thing that just came up for me too was actually after Kiki, you struggled understanding why tarot cards really meant anything. What was the question? Remember that you were like, well, how do we know that that card?
Yeah. Again, I'm such a logical person, so I'm thinking, am I why are tarot cards so important? Why are they a tool that people use to kind of give you information on your day or the year, whatever questions that you had? Why tarot cards? Every card has a meaning, right? Like every card, you can pick a card and be like, you can always come back with a conclusion on whatever question that you have based off whatever tarot card that you pick. That was my assumption of tarot cards. But you explained to me that that's not the case. That each card, you like the percentage of picking a card that aligns with your question is almost it's but fate pretty much.
It's fate because so basically what tarot is a way to reflect back to yourself in your subconscious. So yes, any card you get, you're going to make a meaning out of because every card has a meaning and then your subconscious is going to try to create a meaning out of it. But when Charles asked specific questions and had specific things in his mind of I need to see this to know it's real. There were certain cards that came up that were exactly that.
Yeah.
And that percentage to get the card that meant exactly what he was seeking is rare. Now, Charles also got cards that I got a reading from Kiki a week prior, and Charles got the exact same card with basically the exact same meaning in a specific area. So that statistically, there's 72 cards in a deck is very hard to do. And so understanding that there is a story through the tarot deck and there's an archetype for every card and there's a meaning for every card. And so to get specific meanings does kind of validate where you're at a lot of the times because you're like, okay, that's exactly how I was feeling. And I got that exact card in that placement. So when you learned that, you realized, oh, okay, so that makes more sense. And so tarot is a divination tool. You got to be connected to your intuition. You got to be a clear channel, a clear vessel as well to use them. And so now you and I in the mornings will just pull a card and that helps us ground ourselves. Okay, spirit guides, what do we want to know? We pull a card, whatever the meaning of that card is, it's to critically think about or to be open to throughout the day. And it kind of just like grounds us to our own energy.
Yeah.
And it's just a good reflective tool.
Yeah. It kind of gives you like a warning of what your day, like what you should expect out of your day. So depending on what kind of questions you have for the tarot card, mine are usually around work. So when you give me my tarot reading, I can logically now think about what my day potentially could be. And it makes it easier for me to go to a work day and just be aware, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the last thing I really want to highlight around tools is obviously astrology. You can always track what's going on in the sky, which Charles would be like, why am I feeling off today? But journaling. I will live and die by journaling. I don't care if you're listening and saying it doesn't work. It fucking works because it takes the things in your mind, you connect it to your hand, you have to think about it, you write it, and it can just be a conscious stream of writing and you can figure out what the hell is swimming in your subconscious. But secondly, you get it out of your mind. Our mind is racing, and to write it out, to then see what you wrote and realize, oh, that's not true, or that's a distortion, or to just get it out, it helps. I promise you. And I hear so many excuses of why people can't journal, but that's your ego wanting to stay stuck. Your ego does not want you to grow. Your ego does not want you to change. It wants you to be in the exact same spot because it's comfortable and safe. So do something different, please.
Yeah.
So walking, journaling, tarot, spirituality in a way, just finding your own tool within the spiritual.
Just find yourself a Lauren. That's all you need to do.
Readings are available. Have really helped you manage your anxiety. And so that's where I'm really excited. What this is about to be between you and I is obviously we're just going to do podcasts. Like I think the next one we're going to talk about is conscious relationships and how we got here to where we are today. But also on the YouTube channel, we're going to break down Charles's chart. We're going to break down his human design because the more that you become aware of your own energy, the more you get to transmute your chart. So what I mean by that is there's octaves. You can live your chart out at the lowest octave. You're going to be in shadow energy. You're not going to be really fulfilled, but you're probably living your chart out because that's the energy that you hold. Then there's like the awaken octave where you're very much a bird's eye view of your consciousness in a way, and you're starting to make those shifts and you still get triggered. And then there's like that octave 3 where you are so empowered, you are conscious, you are giving back, you're in the divine energy. That is where we want Chachi to get. And I am so excited to watch him go from octave 1/2 to 3 and see how that unfolds in your life.
And if you don't know anything that she's talking about, just follow us on the YouTube channel and you can learn what the heck she's talking about, just like me.
Totally. And I'll literally be doing like tutorials of like how to pull up your birth chart. So how to pull up your human design chart. So you can literally follow along if you have similar placements. And of course, I'll be like breaking down on my YouTube channel, literally specific placements. So it's going to be cool. I've been in a hermit mode all of Pisces season. Pisces season is currently happening right now. It is the last season of the zodiac wheel. Technically, the Aries season is the first season of the zodiac new year. Aries is fire, Pisces is water. Pisces is a time of reflection, and I feel like that's kind of where I'm at, but it's like bubbling, and Aries is the time of birth and initiating. And so I feel like come Aries season, we'll be popping the fuck off.
Yeah, like, yeah. Don't know what you said, but yes.
Love it. Okay, well, again, Chachi, my love, I had so much fun with you today.
Yeah.
I can't wait to continue. I'm glad Griffey decided to join us as well.
I know, he's just part of the fam.
He's what made us a little trio.
Yes.
Okay, I could talk about my dog all day. Again, like, share, follow us on YouTube, be a part of this journey. Subscribe, comment, like ask
Anything.
questions, anything. We'll talk about it. We'll give you a shout out, whatever you want to know. Or not shout out.
Just ask me questions about relationships and I can give you shitty advice. Just hit me up.
But the thing is, like, my friends call me and I'll give advice. I'll be like, well, let me hear Charles's. And I'm like, what the fuck? So you get pretty good advice.
I do get pretty good advice.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for your support. And I'm excited for this to continue to ride.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.
To get in touch with me, you can head over to thelunarchild.com and book any astrology or therapy sessions. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram, The Lunar Child, if you want to dive into daily astrology transits, everything you need to know about your birth chart, and some health and wellness goodies. And I will see you all next time.